Well, let's go ahead. Before we get into the actual presentation on thriving as a private online teacher, I want to make a couple of comments from the last episode. I was talking about fatherhood, my transformation as a teacher and as a father over time. And I just want to make a couple of comments that people shared regarding that. Rita said, teachers find it hard to avoid favoritism toward their students sometimes. All students should be treated equally, and more attention for weaker students is important. And one of the things I made mention of in the last broadcast was the idea that sometimes we make faulty assumptions and ideas about other groups, particularly our students and even family members. And so I think that's really important to try to avoid favoritism. But one of the challenges is implicit bias. Sometimes we're not even aware that we are showing favoritism to other students, but great idea. Another listener said, Riyadh, he said, every teacher should be compassionate, human, and especially understanding. We teachers now, but students back then, were in their shoes. We slept in their class. We came to class in a bad mood. So I think the idea is that we have to be very compassionate and understanding of our students in so many situations. Kaylor from Costa Rica said, at the end, referring to the idea of being compassionate to our students, students might forget what you taught them in terms of class content, but they will never forget how you treated them. It is vital to remember that everyone is a person and that we all have different hardships at home. And I think that's totally true. I think one of the ideas is that I mentioned last time is that, well, no one cares how much you know until they really know how much you care about them. Really important. And then one more comment. Elizabeth said, when I was younger, I made judgments on people based on my own insecurities and ego. I think to see your mistakes, you have to put yourself out there and take risks. If you wrap yourself in your own certainties, you are going to have a harder time of seeing your mistakes. In other words, if we hold on to our beliefs with an iron grip, sometimes we can't see when we make mistakes. And so those are great comments. Let's see who else is joining us. We have hello there from Hungary. Rita, welcome from Malaysia. We have Bello from Mexico. Wow, we have a number of people that are joining us, and thank you so much for being a part of today's program. Again, my name is Randall Davis, and we are talking about thriving as an online private teacher. Let me share a couple more ideas before we get into the topic today. First of all, I mentioned in the last episode about future episodes, and if you're interested in participating, feel free to let me know. We have one episode coming up that might become a series on teacher profiles from around the world. Often it is useful to know the teaching environments of teachers around the world that can basically enrich all of us from their experiences. I have another episode that is dealing with religion and the language teacher, which might seem like a hot topic. But one of the things, how can we foster a positive classroom environment in which students can learn the faith traditions of other people without teachers evangelizing a particular point of view? All of us bring to the classroom our own perspectives, our own feelings, and I think that topic could be of use to us as well. Another new project that is coming up is I'm going to be taking these broadcasts and turning them into language activities on my website. I will be announcing that a little bit in the future. Let's see what other comments we have from Mexico. Marcela, thank you. Ivan from Guatemala. Armand from Madagascar. It's late at night there. Well, welcome to our broadcast today. Well, right now I'm going to go ahead and start the actual broadcast so that we can get right into the meat of why all of you are here. Again, feel free to share your comments and thoughts as we begin this particular broadcast, because I think this will be very useful to everyone involved. So here we go. Hi, I'm Randall from Randall's ESL Cyber Listening Lab, providing tips on language learning, culture, and human development. And today's broadcast, I think, is one of primary importance for everyone, whether you're a teacher or a student. And since the beginning of 2020, it really, literally, the world has been rocked by the pandemic, COVID-19. And I think it has thrown the world into a crisis, both in terms of healthcare and in terms of economic systems, and feeling great despair and also chaos, you could say. And I think we've seen a great deal of loss, a loss of life, a loss of jobs, a loss of hope as well. And I don't think any part of the world has been spared from this. And I think one of the examples of this upheaval, of this changing landscape, has been in the area of language instruction. And I think many schools have felt deeply impacted by this, having to make hasty transitions from the language classroom, face-to-face instruction, to online learning. And in a previous episode, we talked with Carol Siciliano Rodriguez from Costa Rica. She shared her experiences of making this transition from face-to-face classroom to online instruction in conjunction with her teaching. And one of the important parts that Carol mentioned is about having great empathy for teachers who are struggling to find their way in this new environment, and also for students who are feeling great anxiety of trying to balance their schoolwork with also the needs of their particular family. Fortunately, I think there are many teachers that have found a new path, a new way of trying to make this transition. And one of the challenges is that some teachers have lost their jobs, where their schools no longer are able to follow their past business models, teaching models. And some teachers are thinking about getting out of the teaching profession completely. However, there are new teachers that are setting up their own new course of instruction, finding new paths, finding new teaching models, and are not only making a living at it, but are learning to thrive in this particular teaching model as well. And so in this episode today, we will be interviewing one such teacher, Elaine Oliveira from Brazil, exploring her own model of success and sharing her own experiences with us as well. So I want to welcome today Elaine Oliveira. Welcome very much to our show today.
All right, Randall, thank you so much for having me today. It's a pleasure being here, and I hope it can be of help.
Great. So what we'd like to do is throughout the program today, we're going to be going through different steps of what you've used, how you found an optimal teaching model for you. And we encourage, of course, those that are joining us live to share their experiences along the way. Those things that we'll be mentioning, Elaine, we talked about sharing specifics in some of the teacher notes afterwards. We already have received comments about the topic today, which we'll try to address. So if you could go ahead and just tell us a little bit about your teaching background. We realize, at least I realized, this started well before COVID and you made that transition. But if you could talk a little bit about your teaching background, the transition that you made and why, and then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of some of today's episode.
All right. Well, thank you again for having me here. I hope I can share some experiences, and I really want to learn with all of you, so please participate. Well, I've been teaching for 17 years now, and I've been online for 2 years, so it was way before the pandemic started. And we'll go through the reasons why I did this, but I've been teaching for this long, and I've been coordinating English schools here in Brazil as well. So I was not only a teacher, but also a coordinator. And this transition was very interesting, very interesting. So it took me a little while. I hope I can give you some shortcuts today.
Okay, well, great. Let's just kind of turn to some comments. We have Ruben from Spain joining us, Carlos from the Dominican Republic.
Nice.
We have people that are talking about listening websites and so forth. And Fernanda, hello, Elaine.
Fernanda.
Is that one of your colleagues?
Yes. She owns an English school here in Brazil, Blue Pine.
Okay, well, great. Well, let's go into the actual nuts and bolts of some of these topics. Again, we'll be going through a series of topics. Feel free to share your comments about these topics. We certainly want to make sure that you are part of the live discussion today. So let's talk a little bit about, for example, determining clientele. How do you go about determining who you are going to target? And imagine for a minute, we probably have, Elaine, some teachers that are still working at their institutions and
Sure.
maybe want to teach privately on the side.
Mhm.
Others have moving away from that model, perhaps like you have done, and are trying to determine, who do I target? So how do you go about determining your clientele?
Yeah, well, first thing, be comfortable with whatever you choose to do. That's number one. Choose whatever you're comfortable with doing, because then you're definitely going to be good at it, right? Don't go like, oh, I need to do this because it's a good field. Any field is a good field as long as you're comfortable and you're confident in it, and because you're definitely going to do well. So that's what students really want. I've always thought adult students. So to me, this was a natural way to go. I never worked with kids or anything like that. So that was very natural. And it's not really hard to find adults online, right? Seeking English tips and everything. So it's really easy to approach, and they approach you. So go for what makes you comfortable working with, right? And then you're going to be able to know what you're going to work with.
Okay, I think that's really good. And you mentioned that you're focusing specifically on adults.
Yes.
Other people who are working with teenagers, with children, feel free to chime in. I
Yes.
know Rita mentioned one of her questions was talking about how to control teaching of younger children in groups. We're talking about maybe small groups, private lessons as well. Some kids are hyperactive and can't sit long. So
Yeah.
feel free to share, although you're mentioning, Elaine, you're targeting adults. Feel free, if you're sharing and you're trying to do private lessons with teenagers or children, feel free to share some of your advice regarding that. Let's see here. Comfortability is a basic feeling for me to teach effectively. So that's, I think, is woven into everything we've talked about. And one of the things I want to go back to, I mentioned a little bit earlier, I have on a different broadcast, is where Carol joined us in a previous episode about empathy, having great empathy for teachers and students, and feeling comfortable. I think maybe that's what Ruben is talking about, feeling comfortable about who you're teaching and not feeling forced to target a particular group.
Yeah.
All right. What about marketing? So how do you determine your actual clientele? How do you go about finding students?
Yeah, well, finding students right now, I think it's the best thing you can do. 2 years ago, it was easy, but right now it's a piece of cake because everyone is online. Everyone is online, whether they want it or not, right? 2 years ago when I started, some people were online, but older people sometimes, or people who are really not into technology, they were not into social media and everything. But right now, people have no option because of the pandemic. So everybody is home and everybody is online. So do as YouTube says, broadcast yourself, right? This is the best marketing strategy. The student will get to know you, will get to know your profile once you start posting stuff, and then they'll say, okay, I would like to have a class with that teacher or not. And if they don't want to, that's fine. There will be people who will have that wish, and then those are the people you want to reach. That's your public.
Okay. And I noticed behind you have pictures of yourself, which I think are
Yeah.
highlighting, and you have an excellent Twitter page. I think that is really exciting. You have your presence on Facebook, your presence on YouTube, and so forth. So certainly those are ways of advertising that.
Definitely.
Let's see what else are the comments. Here is Ruben going back to one of the questions. Because some children seem to be apathetic and therefore they do not show any kind of interest in learning English. So certainly that would be a population where people would have to address, how do I reach out to this particular population and connect with them?
Yeah.
And certainly I would be interested in hearing more about that from others.
Sure.
Rita says, I also teach adults who are mothers and they are not fluent in speaking. I have 4 in a classroom. Do you think online is workable for them? So let's say that you have that particular population. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. I think, in fact, that's the best thing when you have moms, because they're home, and sometimes they feel, and I'm also a mom, and sometimes I felt like, oh my gosh, I need to take care of my kids. I need to do things around the house. I would love to do so many things, but I can't because I don't have time to, get my car and drive 30 minutes to anywhere. But if I'm home, I can do that, right? So it's wonderful for them. They feel very appreciated because they're at home and they can. I teach some girls, some women, some moms with their kids on their laps, right? And I know their families and everything. And this is nice because they feel they can make this investment on themselves and not just give up everything because they're a mom. So that would be nice. And she mentions that it's a group of 4. That's even more interesting. You can bring up topics concerning motherhood and things that they can share, and this will make them talk. So this is really interesting. I think it works just fine.
And I think you mentioned, and I think we're trying to show threaded connections between family, human connection, allowing students in this particular environment to have their family. I mean, you have dogs, I have dogs. In a few minutes, if you hear my dogs barking, that's just what life is. And so I think being understanding to that is great. Well, and we're going to talk a little bit more about tools and so forth here in a few minutes. Well, let's go on to the next point. So we've talked about determining your clientele, marketing and advertising. And again, I'm Randall from Randall's ESL Cyber Listening Lab, and we're talking with Elaine Oliveira about how to establish a private teaching practice. Also, feel free to share your comments about any of these topics about determining your clientele. What is working for you? Marketing and advertising strategies. Maybe you have other methods we haven't talked about. So what about creating and adopting and customizing content? How do you go about doing that? Because people are wanting to know, I'm trying to balance all of my life, and how do I do that? Do I create? Do I adopt? Do I customize? What are some ideas?
Yeah, do a little bit of all of them. That's what I do. I try to create some things, but as you said, we've got our personal lives to take also, so we shouldn't be so concerned about creating, especially because there's so much online. There's so much material online that you can just get it for free, and just make sure that it's copyrightable. And usually the websites, they just make this very clear. We have a small list here, like britishcouncil.org. They have not only printouts, but they have videos and listenings. You have Randall's website, which is very, very useful. And you can use those links to have your students practicing their listenings. You have Lingua House. So do a little bit of each, right? Get that material online and try to adjust it to your needs. You can add a video. You can add a listening. You can remove a certain activity. It doesn't mean that it's a PDF file that you need to follow. I mean, that was designed for a specific group that maybe it's not yours. So you just need to adapt and adjust. A little bit of 3, create, but also get whatever is online and customize. You can also adopt a book, right? I have a few books that I use, but I don't use the whole book throughout the classes, because I think that private students, they're seeking something a little bit more personalized, right? Than just having a book and, okay, today's page 10.
Okay, those are great comments. I know that Carol posted a couple of questions. What kind of activities do you use to start an online class? And this may be connected to what we're talking about, or teaching tools in a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
What strategies do you apply in your lessons? And what kinds of assignments do you use in your lessons? So when you're talking about assignments, were you referring in part to some of that adapting of other materials, or do you have any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, yes, adapting whatever we have. And also you can create things. I love to create homework activities, especially because I just try to pay attention to what the student has the most difficulty with during the classes. And then I just try to find something very suitable for that. And if I can't find something that's ready, I will just go and do it. And then we're going to go into that. But then Google Classroom is really going to help you out with that, because then you can put many assignments and do many things. You can.
Okay, hold on to that.
So cool. But we're going to talk about it.
Okay, so I think that could tie into our next point. So we've been talking about maybe creating, adopting, customizing. And again, people who are using my website can certainly, using Zoom and other platforms, use that content in terms of of helping their students in language learning. So certainly if people have questions, they can contact the website owner, find out any limitations. And that's what you're suggesting.
Yeah.
All right. So now let's get into the nitty-gritty of actually selecting teaching tools. And again, we will, as we go through some of these, we will be posting these tools in the show notes right after on Facebook and on YouTube, so that people don't have to be taking copious notes. What was that? What did you talk about? So let's talk about just different tools. We'll talk about them, and then we'll provide links to them afterwards. Before we get to that, let's see if we had any other comments here. Elizabeth says, motivation is difficult in an online context. I find it difficult to get students to complete tasks and assignments. They enjoy the class, but they don't seem to like to do the work outside of class. I work for a government program and also for a board. Is it different when they come to you and are footing their own bill? So what about that? So they're not being forced to come. Here, Elizabeth says it's hard to get them to do tasks, maybe if they're part of a language school, the parents are paying for it or whatever. But do you find it different? Any comment on that?
Yeah, no, it's just the same. Even when they're paying for it, they're just very, very lazy. What I try to do most of the time is whatever I assign for them to do, out of the class, is our first topic on the next class. So if they don't do it, they're just going to feel completely lost and embarrassed. So if you do that like 2 or 3 times, like on the 4th time, okay, I need to at least to watch a video or read something before the class. They do it like 5 minutes before the class, but they do it because they feel embarrassed, right? Like, again, I failed, dear teacher, so that's a hint.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good comment. I don't know if you have any other comments, anyone on that, of how to motivate students, even when they're footing their own bill. And I think what we're trying to mention too is sometimes people have things that are going on outside of their lives that we don't know of as well. So good questions. Ruben says, what do you think about some hard syllabi in schools which stress students? How do you make them effective and enjoyable? And I'm wondering if he's talking about there's a very structured curriculum.
Yeah.
How do you make that enjoyable to students in that case?
Yeah, you can always add things according to their profile or change a little bit the way something is done. I understand that sometimes it's very strict and you need to go through the, you just follow exactly whatever it is, a book or whatever methodology. But then you can always, bring your own seasoning to that. You can change a little bit, right, with your own way. And of course, checking students' interests. Some groups, I hardly ever teach schools, but for example, I had a group, I remember they used to love Pokemon. So I always try to learn about it a little bit, and everything I would say in the book, and they say, oh, like that, whatever monster it was. So I tried to make a relation. I couldn't really go far from what the book and the methodology told me to do, but then I could, just get to know them. And then what Randall said at the beginning of the live, empathy, right? Empathy. Try to understand your student. Try to understand that sometimes they don't even want to be there, right? When they're teenagers, when they're younger learners, sometimes they don't want to be there. Sometimes they're just forced into it. And then just, try to understand and try to help them out.
Good point. Hefe says, first of all, Randall and Elaine, good morning. I'm from Brazil as well. Nice. I've been following Randall since 2007. It's helped me a lot. My question for you, Elaine, is there a way to learn proper English without going abroad and emerging in the culture? And I think this is, a really important point because in many ways, if you're talking about students who are looking at a private teacher and are hoping, have a certain expectation or wanting a teacher to be able to articulate and pronounce well, and I'm sure that we all agree, all of us have accents. I have an accent, you have an accent, but I think what is a way to develop proper English without going abroad, and what tips might you have for private teachers who are concerned about that, or any teacher?
Yeah. Well, first of all, be exposed to the language. I lived in the US for 2 years. It does not mean that when I came back, I knew everything. I just had the basics. I just had the structure. I can say that throughout the years, I've learned so much more being in my own country and studying the language appropriately than when I lived in the US, because I wasn't studying English. I was just listening to people speaking, and I was going to school, and I just learned whatever I heard, but I didn't study English, So exposing yourself to the language, a nice way to expose yourself to real language, so you know what's really being used and what's not just on Google or on a dictionary, is going online into social media. Social media is the best place to be. Follow your artists, follow the people you like, make friends with other people who are also learning English, or with people who are native English speakers. And then you get the hang of how the language really works outside a classroom setting, outside of, the page of a book that's so strict. So I think that would be like, go online.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that maybe this is making the shift to selecting teaching tools. We're going to talk about Zoom for a minute, but I think one idea could be create a community of teachers like us. Create a community where maybe once a week, teachers get together and talk about, current events, whatever it might be. And so in addition to what you mentioned, maybe creating new communities can be one possible way of doing that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about selecting teaching tools. Again, we're not going to be doing an exhaustive list, but we encourage people to share their teaching tools as well.
Yeah. Oh, first thing, Zoom. Zoom is my best friend forever, like BFF all the way. Why is Zoom my best friend? Because many people say, okay, you have to pay for Zoom. And I use the free version. I've been using it for free for like 2 years because it works for me. Why does it work? Because I only teach one-on-one. So if you have up to 2 people in the meeting room, like me and Randall here right now, it's unlimited. You don't have this time constraint. Some people say, oh, you can only run classes up to 40 minutes. That's not true. If you have only 2 people, you and 1 student. So if you're teaching one-on-one, it's free. If you have groups, or let's say 2 students on, that's going to be 3 people in a meeting. Then there are some solutions you can do. Sometimes when I need to do that, I just give students a break. If you have a 1-hour class, just give them a quick break for, water and bathroom, 5 minutes, and then they come back in. They will never notice, right? You don't need to pay for that if you can afford it. And it's just the same thing. There are few tools that you get, extra tools you get when you pay for Zoom, but I've been teaching for 2 years and I really don't need them. So I wouldn't go for Skype. I think it's not as stable as Zoom. And there are some other platforms now, like Google.
Well, could we hold on, talk a little bit about Zoom? Number one, you've made a couple important points. Number one, when you're working one-on-one, there is no 40-minute time limit. And you have unlimited sessions, which I think is really, really important. And the one thing you mentioned about paid, there are a couple of additional features. One with the paid version is cloud recording. So if you record something and you want to save it to the cloud, that is a possibility. But the important point you mentioned is this one-on-one unlimited time, not that 40-minute barrier that sometimes people are thinking about.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So what other tools?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Jump in. With Zoom, perhaps you could share some of the things that you can do with Zoom. Some teachers are aware of it. Some are new to Zoom. In addition to holding, like a web conference with students, what are some of those tools that you can do?
Okay. You mentioned that you can upload the material to the cloud, right? If you have the paid version. But the thing is, you can still save everything. It's just going to be locally. It's not going to be, so you're going to need to have a nice hardware for that, but you can still save. And it's very interesting. One thing that's very interesting, answering your question, Randall, is that we can save not only the video, but Zoom creates a file, an MP3 file of just the audio. So if you want to, send the students so they can listen to it again, if you want to create a podcast with your classes, if you want to create a podcast, for example, you make a YouTube video and then you just want that audio and create a podcast with that. Zoom gives you the MP3. During the class, You have a whiteboard feature, and I think this is the best thing Zoom offers. It's a nice built-in whiteboard. You don't have to go to any extra app unless you want to. And this whiteboard, you can do free drawing, you can type into it, you can do many things, right? Just as you would do on a regular board. And you can save that board at the end of the class. And I always save my boards and send it to students. You can also share videos and listening activities and everything. If I'm not mistaken, there are some other tools. I'm not sure if it's Teams or Meet. I don't know, it doesn't allow you to share the audio. You can share the video, but not the audio. So it doesn't really help during classes, right? So Zoom, you can share the audio too.
Yeah, and one of the a couple of things. Number one, what you can do, let's say someone is going to my website or has an audio file on their computer.
Yeah.
You can actually share your screen with the students, and you can play the audio. So the audio that's playing on your computer, you can actually have students listen to that as well. So if students are listening to a website or you have an audio file, they can listen to that too. And you can share your PowerPoint. So sometimes I give PowerPoint presentation, students can watch that as well.
Yes, PowerPoint, PDF, and whatever. And just making a remark here on privacy, right? You don't need to share your whole screen. This is what I love about Zoom. You can just share one screen. You can have like tons of things open, but they will see that one screen. And sometimes I have the listening transcript on Word. So I show the student the Word file, but they're still listening to whatever I'm playing online, sometimes on Randall's website. So this is amazing. This is amazing. They just love this. And it's really, really easy to use. I've never done any course or anything. It's very easy to learn. So go for it. I love Zoom.
And I think this is one of the tools that I would never go back to what I was doing before. In other words, probably in the future, even if I went back someday to face-to-face classroom, there's certainly going to be a place for Zoom as part of consultations and so forth.
Definitely.
Let's take a look at some comments that have come in. Let's see. If teachers are not computer savvy, how can they handle new teaching tools such as a private tutor? So one of the things that, any comment on that about, it's new technology, what is the learning curve and so forth?
Yeah, I'm not the tech guy, definitely not. I have 2 teenagers, so sometimes my teenagers help me out. What you can do is just ask for help online or to any friends. But thing is, just bear in mind that the student, they want you. When I first started teaching with Zoom, I had no idea what I was doing concerning the platform. And I learned as I went, I just, and students were really understanding about that because they don't want a technology expert. They want your knowledge. And the best way you can transmit it is really talking. So this is the number one thing. Don't worry too much about that. I'm not an expert. I'm not really good at technology. And I got my way. I found my way into doing things. So you will find your way. You will. But go online. Online, there's so many videos. So YouTube is like, wow.
And let me put out a challenge there. One of the things I mentioned to Carol in the previous broadcast, and I'm still open to do this. If there are any teachers out there that are saying, wow, I'd like to experiment with Zoom. I'd like to try it out, but I don't know how to do it. Perhaps we can arrange a training meeting. Where we can get together with teachers to experiment, because I think the whole goal of doing this type of training is to make sure that teachers shine, that they look good. And so that's certainly an idea that we could do. Going back to Ruben mentions, and this was a comment that was made back by Heffy. He says, making friends online is a great strategy to get accents. Absolutely. Here we have, hi, I want to ask, how do you handle an online class with 10 to 20 students? Any tips on that? And I know that we're focusing today mainly on private lessons, but do you have a quick idea on how do you maintain manage a Zoom class with 10 to 20 students?
Well, you need, what I would do, which would be to assign students different tasks. And then that Zoom paid version helps you with that, because then you can create different rooms. And then you can like group them, like 4 students will do one thing and another 4 students will do something else. And then you bring them all together again so they can share and present. That's the way to keep everyone busy, right?
Okay. And
So
there's
that
those
we
breakout rooms within Zoom.
yeah. But
Yeah.
that's only for the paid
Yeah.
version, right? That's one
So-
of the things a paid version is going to help you with.
So let's talk, and I'd have to go back to see because it seems like the private version has breakout rooms. I'd have to go back and check on that. One of the things I put out that challenge, if any of you teachers saying, wow, I'd like to experiment with Zoom, I'm certainly happy to organize maybe a simple workshop so that we could experiment with that together. Contact me privately about that.
I'm in.
All right. So we talked about Zoom, any other tools. And again, we could talk about tools all day.
Yeah.
But a couple of other tools that you found beyond Zoom.
Yeah.
Or in conjunction with Zoom.
Yeah. For teaching itself, for broadcasting transmitting the class, Zoom, right? But then I have Skype installed just in case. I have a student in Dubai. I did not know that they cannot have live broadcasts.
Good point.
They can't answer video calls. So through any app you try, it starts and then it's cut. So what I do is I use WhatsApp. And I don't call the student. I just make a video, a short 1 or 2 minute video. I send that student. The student takes a look, and then he replies. So that's how I do my classes with that particular student. So be creative about it, right? There's so many things that you can do for free. But Zoom for broadcasting for transmission is the number one thing.
And if I could hold on one idea, any of you, like you mentioned, Elaine, about perhaps particular parts of the world where Zoom either does not function or not allowed or whatever.
Maybe.
I think we'd like to hear from teachers where you find those restrictions. And you mentioned what's up, any other apps or technologies that are being used in that particular case. So what other tools?
Yeah, Google Classroom, which is also free, so that's very good, and it's so rich. I mean, we could go on here forever, but Google Classroom is just an incredible tool. It's amazing, really. All the things you can do, you can create new activities. You can have just a classroom for the whole group. I have private students just one-on-one, so each one of my students has a different classroom, and there is unlimited storage. So because it's connected to Google Drive, so it's unlimited. It's wonderful. You can upload as much material as you would like to, and students can interact with you. And Randall, I'm just sorry to go back a little bit to Zoom, but both of us, we forgot to mention that students can also share their screens and their audios and their materials with us. So, for example, if they have done something, okay, I've done my homework here on Word. Would you like to see it? Can I share it with you? And then they can share their screen. They can type on the whiteboard along with us. Zoom is amazing. I'm sorry, missing the point here, but I just needed to go back and mention this. But Google Classroom is like my second best friend. The first is Zoom.
And one of the things you mentioned about Zoom is that a lot of times teachers are thinking, well, this is a teacher-led platform, but students can create their own Zoom rooms. In other words, you can, as a teacher, you create your own Zoom room, but there are students, I'm sure, that are saying, hey, I want to extend my learning beyond what the teacher is doing. Let's organize our own Zoom class, and they can do that for free.
For free. That's the best part of it, right?
Now, we don't, I apologize. Zoom certainly is one source. I'm sure we could talk more about Skype, Microsoft Group Teams, Quizlet. You mentioned several others. What I'd like to do is I'd like to move on. Again, let's see if there are any other comments regarding this topic. Here is Fernando says you can use breakout rooms on the free version. Thanks, Fernando.
Wow.
Yeah, so one of the things that I, in conjunction with the work that I do at the University of Utah, I have their paid enterprise version. On my own work that I do in meeting with teachers and so forth, I use the private version. But certainly that is an excellent point. So thanks, Fernanda, for pointing that. Julio says, thanks for sharing all this information. This is gold. Greetings from Bolivia. Also, Tutor Joe says, Have a good one, sir. Greetings from Costa Rica. Thank you very much. And we have another comment, Randall, for your ESL Lab audios. They are humorous and informative. And again, as we've mentioned about adopting, using content, certainly people I know are using my content in that way, using Zoom in conjunction with that. Another comment, and then we'll move on. Randall and Elaine, what do you think about Instagram to make live videos as a marketing strategy? Any thoughts on that? Going back to one of those earlier comments and topics, but I think an excellent point.
Yeah. Instagram right now is the platform I use the most, and it's the best platform because you can really engage with people. People don't feel that they're being exposed, for example, as on Facebook, in which there's a lot of personal information and everything. So this is wonderful. Not only live videos, but having your own Instagram profile page and then posting. I post regularly, right? Videos and tips and all kinds of things. And students love it. People in general love it. It's not only for my students, it's open for anyone. And it's wonderful. So this is the best way. I can tell you right now that maybe 75% of my students came from Instagram.
Okay. And that's great. And why don't you at the end make sure that we post your Instagram account, if that's okay? Facebook,
yeah, sure.
so that people can see the types of things that you do. I think what we're trying to do is create a supportive environment that everyone can benefit. And so some great topics. All right. Okay. So we've talked about marketing, determine your clientele, creating and adopting and customizing lessons. We've talked about selecting tools. Now, what about equipment? How important is that in trying to create a positive learning environment? And we're going to talk about some of these tools, and I'm just going to zoom out. So I know we talked a little bit about this beforehand. So what about microphones, lights, webcams? How important is that to creating a positive, energetic, classy type of broadcast on a budget?
Yeah, that's the important part, on a budget. When I first started like 2 years ago, I just had my MacBook and a regular earphone, which also I used as a microphone. This was all I had. And my cell phone. It wasn't even this one. It was a Samsung, another one. This one is much better. But even though, whatever you have, you can work with. Don't panic about equipment, right? This is something that I was really concerned. No, I'm saying because I was really concerned because I saw other teachers and I started watching videos and I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't got a camera, I haven't got steady lights, and I haven't got all these things. I just have this MacBook and earphone. Oh my gosh, can I do this? Yes, you can. And it's going to be awesome. Once again, the student wants you. They don't want, Beyonce's live show or anything. They just want something that they can understand. Of course, I love looking beautiful. I love looking good and pretty and sounding the best I can. So you can add up some equipment that's really cheap. But if you really have nothing to start with your laptop, computer, and your earphone. Okay.
Now hold on to that point. My laptop that I write this broadcast, and anything I do with Zoom is about 5 or 6 years old. It's a really cheap, bare bones laptop. And so the laptop is not necessarily the thing that you should be focusing on when you're talking about content. But you made a point, even when you're starting with something, I'm just starting out, I need something really basic. A basic laptop with a webcam, an internal webcam should do the trick.
Exactly. Perfectly. So that it does the trick, especially if it's a MacBook. My MacBook is like from 2011. So it's it's 9 years old and it works just fine.
Okay, so let's talk about microphones, lights, webcams. If you want to boost it up just a little bit, what are some options?
Sure. Okay. I have this webcam, which is this. I just found out that's the same as Randall. I just bought it right now.
Here. We use the same. It's called the Logitech. All right. It's the C920S, and we use the same webcam.
Exactly, because the image is so good, and you can do a lot of things with it, and it's also got a built-in mic. So if you really are running out of options, it's not the best sound you can have, but the student's going to be able to listen to you, to hear you. So it's okay. And it's affordable, right? It's not so expensive. Here in Brazil, I bought it. I think it was $100, something like that. I think that's about it, Randall, in the
Yeah,
US.
well, right now, because of COVID-19, the prices have gone up a little bit, but normally it's under $100. And if I could just show real quickly, let me just switch over to my webcam on my computer. So this is the webcam on my computer. Okay, it's fine. It works, you know. But if I wanted to, I can go over and let me just go ahead and switch back to the webcam that we are using, the Logitech. Again, you can see it's much clearer.
Yeah, but the laptop camera works just fine, right?
Absolutely.
Works just fine. So we have this camera. I have this lapel mic, right?
And again, if I just so they know, we will be putting this in the show notes for people. It's a great webcam.
Yeah, great.
Okay, microphones.
Microphones, yes. Well, I have a lapel mic, or a tie mic, whatever you call it. And this was literally $2. I'm not kidding. And it's my best friend. So it works just really fine. The sound is much better than this microphone, the microphone on your earphone, right? But if you have nothing to start with this, right? You certainly listen to Spotify or something, or Apple Music. So you have a wired regular phone. You can also use earpods, right? If you're using a laptop computer, you can use earpods. So use whatever you have. But I have this lapel mic, which was really cheap, but it sounds really good. It has this, you see, this little sponge here came along with it, and Randall's got one too, right? But
sometimes what they have what they're called right there, a dead cat. Or a windshield. There are different types of windshields.
Yeah, mine is real simple because this was $2, but it works, Yep. And I also have another mic here. Let me show you. It's also wired, and this one sounds really great. You just need to keep it real close to your mouth. It comes with a tripod. So, I lost mine, but it comes with a tripod, and this was really cheap. It was, if I'm not mistaken, $15. So it's really, really affordable. And wow, it sounds amazing. It doesn't sound as good as Randall's. I love him. His is gold, Next thing I'm going to buy is definitely a microphone like his. But this sounds really nice. This sounds really okay. Students loved it, in fact. So this is something you can do. Just make sure, I'm sorry, Randall, just make sure you have one of these. This is important. I don't know, maybe this is 50 cents, but this is important just to adapt to your laptop computer. Otherwise, your microphone will not work. And it took me a long time to realize that.
Now, your other, though, is a USB. Is that right?
No, it's all plugged like this.
Okay. All right.
I have no USB microphones.
All right. And maybe we could say, again, audio quality, if I'm looking at it, camera versus audio quality can be important. If I just take a minute, I use the Blue Yeti. It's a Blue Yeti. It's a USB microphone. And if I were to go, again, you can hear me right now, but if I were to switch over to my other microphone, let me see here, right?
No.
All right, you can hear me now, right? Okay, so this is the actual microphone off my laptop. You can hear it fine and so forth. But again, you can hear it. But again, if you switch back, I'm going to go switch back to the other microphone. Here we go. And do you hear that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, and again, that's called the Blue Yeti, and we'll be adding that to our show notes so that you know how to. And this is about $100, $110, something like that, but it improves the quality. So something what you've done and so forth. What about lights?
Yeah.
What about lighting?
Yeah, well, I didn't have any kinds of lights, but my skin tone does not help me on camera, honestly. Randall, can I turn off the lights just so people understand how does it look?
Yeah, go ahead and do that. Again, these are small things we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Microphones, again, we'll be putting some of those in the show notes. I think for students, that's important, can be. We've talked about the webcam. This is the webcam. We'll have that in the notes that both Elaine and I, surprisingly, but not surprisingly, use the same one. And we're going to talk a little bit about lights because lights can make a difference. And again, we're thinking about using nothing but also increasing perhaps not the performance, but the actual visual appeal of your private lessons. Okay.
Lights off. I just have the ceiling, the lights on, and it looks okay because this camera is real good.
Did you take off your microphone?
Yes, I did.
Okay, we can hear you, but it's okay. So now you have your lights off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it better now?
Yeah. So show us the lighting that you use. If you can switch around the camera
Yeah.
and tell us a little bit about what it does and so
You guys
forth.
will see my office a little bit. It's a little bit messy.
Yeah. Are we going to see the dog as well?
No, they're locked outside. They couldn't. They won't behave in here, so I just put them out. Let me just try to show you my. This is. Can you see it?
Raise it up a little. I see the tripod. I see
Yeah,
the
this is a big tripod, and this is my softbox. I bought it, but you can do it yourself, like on YouTube. If you have lots of time, it works, and you don't even need
softbox light.
Yeah.
And then take off the actual diffuser there. That little screen.
Take a look at the.
Sorry to. Okay.
Can you see it?
Yep, we can see it. And about how much do those cost? Giving that.
Yeah, the softbox is not really expensive. It's about if I'm not mistaken, $75. The lamps are expensive. The bulbs, I'm sorry, the bulbs are expensive. They cost like $20 or $35 each. They're expensive.
Okay.
Don't break it, as I did a couple times.
And again, I've seen these type of light outfits, $50 to $100.
Yeah.
That's one setup. Thanks for showing and taking the time to show that.
I have the cheapest one, honestly. There's lots of stuff that's like way better than this, but I have the cheapest, which really works for me. As I told you, my skin tone does not help. So if I don't have lots of light on me, it ends up getting really dark, especially on laptop camera. So I have two of these, one on each side here. But if you have one and you don't wear glasses, it works just great. You can put one just in front of you, right? And then it'll work perfectly. But look, my lights are off, and I just have the ceiling light. So if you have a camera, it'll work.
Yeah.
Like let
me show mine as well. I have it on a tripod. So there I've turned off my light, but basically I have this light right here. It's called the newer model 176, and it actually has 176 LED bulbs. It has a diffuser on the front of it so that you can kind of, diffuse the light a little bit. I'm going to put this back. But again, just a simple, I think this one cost me $30-some or something like that. But it just depends on what you want. It just adds a little lighting. And again, we're just talking about some options, not needed, of course.
Exactly.
But it can make a big difference. So we talked about microphones. What?
I need to say.
Oh, my light is about to fall off there. I have it sitting on a little stool in my kitchen. There we are.
No, I just need to share something that's real funny. When I started teaching online, I also started making these videos for social media, especially Instagram. And I did not have a tripod. I had nothing, like just the cell phone really. And I didn't have any kinds of lighting. And I live in an apartment, so even though I have a balcony, it's really noisy outside. So what I would do was I would only record when there was daylight. So I had to record till 3 a.m. on sunny days because when it was raining, I didn't have any light. So the video sucked. So you see, you just need lots of creativity and will to get things going, because I just had I was standing in front of the window with a cell phone and trying to get the best quality of light I had. So do your thing.
And it could be I don't want to get a softbox. I don't want to get a light like Randall has. It could be just an extra lamp or something like that, finding your lighting.
Oh yeah, I had one of those lamps before I had these. I had an extra lamp, the green ones that every American home has got one of those green table lamps. You probably have one. I just had that, and it was in front of, it was just like here at the side, and that's what I had. So.
Well, great. Let's see if we have any additional comments about some of these topics. Thanks for sharing all of these tips. Thank you very much. Ruben, I'm not a teacher. I'm just someone who likes learning languages. To be a teacher, I still need to improve my English. And some of the things that we're talking about, I hope that students would find this presentation useful in selecting a teacher.
Yes.
What are the things that teachers are using to increase their performance, their visual appeal. Rita says, Blue Yeti is fabulous. The audio is excellent. I love the Blue Yeti.
Yeah.
And that would be something that that if I had to choose, camera, Blue Yeti, or whatever microphone. And you've mentioned, Elaine, a couple of possibilities. If people listen to your microphone, that the other one, they would hear a better quality. You're just using a lapel just to make it easy today. Allow students to take part in class, maybe 70%. No one will focus on that item that you're talking about. Teachers help to learn. Teachers don't stand up to show off in front of the class. I think talking about different ways of engaging students in different ways. Here's Rita says, I'm using a Logitech, a webcam, a C922. There we are. The Logitechs have a great quality. Certainly. Great. Let's see here. Well, here's another question. Teachers should be motivated to learn technology. Otherwise, robots will have to teach our students. And so, as I said before, I think a lot of times both you and I think we're trying to give some basic suggestions to finish up this idea on technology. We're trying to suggest that, you can use a bare bones model. You don't have to run out and, buy a lot of different things, but it can enhance the actual over appeal with some basic things.
Sure.
All right, let's move on. Talking about organizing. We have a couple more points to cover today. Thank you, everyone. I'm Randall Davis from Randall's ESL Cyber Listening Lab with Elaine Oliveira from Brazil. And we're going to be talking a couple more points before we end. How about organizing your work schedule so you don't burn out? I mean, what does your schedule look like as a private teacher? When do you start? When do you finish?
Yeah, it's busy, but it's busy because I chose it to be this way. First thing you need is to bear in mind is that when do you want to work? When can you work? When are you able to work? And when you don't want to work or you're not able to. For example, some people really hate teaching early in the morning or working or doing anything. They're not morning people. So don't do it just for the money because it won't work. If you hate waking up at 7 a.m., it won't be a nice class, so don't do it. Organize your schedule, first of all, thinking of what is comfortable. Of course, you're not going to say, I just want to teach at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. That's going to be really hard. Don't narrow it down so much, but try to see what's best for you. For example, if you have small children and, for example, you put them to sleep at 7 p.m., that's not a nice time to have a class, right? But maybe 8 or maybe 6. So try to organize your schedule before talking to students, because sometimes what we do is we really want to have that student. We really want to help them. We really need the money. And then we say, okay, all right, maybe the time is not the best for you, but you say, okay, don't do that. Just talk to the student, show your points, show how busy you are, that you're also a person, you also have a life, and then try to move them to these predetermined hours you have spared for teaching, So, for example, I really don't like teaching Saturdays. Sometimes I do, but that's something I rarely do because I like to wake up and come to the office and plan classes the whole morning. I'm peaceful and organized with that. So I don't like to teach on Saturdays. That's a day that's completely closed. So I have this Excel sheet, really simple thing. I just put here Monday to Friday and the times I would like to teach, the times I'm available. And then when students come to me, I say, look, I have these hours. What's best for you? And
how long are your lessons usually?
Well, it used to be 1 hour, but then I found out that when I had one student after the other, I always had a problem with that. So it's 55-minute long, maybe 50 or 55-minute long is something that works because you're a human being. You need to pee. You need to drink some water, right? You need to munch something. Don't go crazy like, okay, I need to teach 6 hours straight. You need to eat something. So 5-10-minute break. So maybe make it 50-minute long class, 55-minute long class, right? So you can have a little break.
And I'm sure it depends on, the number of students that someone has. Probably depends on their goals, depends on their work schedule. Could we ask, how many lessons do you have a day? And again, how many lessons a teacher can handle depends on their, their goals, their family, and so forth.
Yeah, usually I have 10 classes a day. That's a lot to me. I get really exhausted by the end of the day, but I have some goals right now that I've set up to do this. I'm not doing it because, I want to have as many students as I want. No, It's because I have a goal. Soon enough, I will try to adjust this better. And again, I teach only individuals. I don't have 10 groups. I have 10 individuals throughout the day.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what
And
it's like to me.
right. And we're suggesting not everyone have 10 students. People might say, well, I'd like to have 3 students. I'd like to complement my regular job, or maybe
Yeah,
I have different goals. So again, it sounds like the number of students would really greatly depend on what you want. And
exactly. So have in mind, and especially to how much money you want to make from that, right?
yeah.
So you don't end up working too much and then saying, okay, I'm not making enough money, or you just want I know unfortunately I know some teachers who do that. Okay, I just want to have one student, so average hour here in Brazil is $15, let's say. And then the teacher says, no, I'm going to charge $40, and because I just want to have one student. That's crazy expensive here in Brazil. And then they're just waiting for that one $40 student. The student never shows up, and then they complain, oh, I don't have any money. I'm like, okay, but what do you want, a miracle, right? Nobody's willing to pay that much, even though I think that we should even get paid more, because it's a very important, exhausting job. I put my best to it, but you need to be realistic, right?
Right. Let's see if there are other comments before we go on to the next topic. Let's see here. Is there a paid platform that helps you teach English online? So I'm wondering if the individual, Ruben, is saying, like, for something like a particular platform where students can go. I don't think it's dealing with private teaching, but private learning. Like Duolingo, maybe something like that.
Well, here in Brazil, we have English Live, which is a platform you can, but then you're not going to be a private teacher. Students have a private teacher, but you're not a private teacher, right? And we have some apps. Well, here in Brazil, I don't know anything that works like worldwide. I only know Brazilian sites that do that. But then again, it's not private, and you're not free to do whatever you want.
Right. All right, let's talk last couple of ideas. Number one, how do you set up class expectations and student agreements? How do you go about that?
Yeah. Well, in fact, I don't have something that I call an agreement or a contract or something like that. I do try to set goals and try to explain to students how do I work. But I'm really concerned the way I do it. Sometimes I may sound aggressive or stressed or whatever. And I'm really embarrassed, honestly, to do it. So what I do is, whatever I don't want to really talk to the student, I send them by email. So I have this really nice material written. It looks like an agreement. It looks like a contract, but it's not, because I don't ask them to sign it or anything. But I make sure I send it like on the first day of class, or as soon as I get paid, I send them this, just so they understand about replacement classes, about payment rules, about how they should cope in order for the classes to work. Because I can plan a beautifully interesting, engaging class, and the student does not do his part, then it's not going to work. So I also state that on my agreement, which I do not call agreement term, right? So that's basically what I do first day of class, right? And that's how I keep it under control. And honestly, I've had no problems concerning that, really.
Well, let's talk then about handling replacement classes. You have students, I think some teachers might be worried. I set up my schedule for 8 classes and 5 of them cancel. And I'm not sure, do I have to set up new times for students? How will that affect my rest of my schedule and week? How do you handle replacement classes?
Yeah, this is an interesting topic, because at first it was really, really hard. I had students canceling all the time, like 5 minutes before the class. And I was like, oh my gosh, but I planned my whole day considering this. And then, as Randall said, you had like 5 people canceling on that day. And then what do you do with your schedule, right? It messes you up. So, and unfortunately, some people have the feeling that, okay, but it's not an hour you're going to work. So why should I pay for this? Should this count if the teacher is not working? But in reality, what I tell my students is that what I commercialize is my hour, is my time. So if you set up a time and you don't use it, I can't just 5 minutes before find someone else to use that time. So that time will be unused. So in order to get everyone happy, what I do now is when the student cancels really with really short notice, I record a video. And I explain what are the day's topics, and I do as if it were a class. I talk to them, like for example, if my student would be Randall, I would say, "Hi, Randall, this is your class," and then I make it very personalized. I use the content I would use during class. I try to do it as close as it would be if the student was really there interacting with me, and then I upload it to YouTube. But I make that what do you call it, Randall? You told me it's not closed link. It's a
private.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right?
Unlisted. An unlisted link.
Yes, thank you. An unlisted link. And then you can make it unlisted. And then only your student will have access to that, and they feel that it's something worthy. Because if you just put it public, they would say, okay, but anybody can watch this. I'm paying for something that anybody can watch for free.
Good point.
Doesn't make any sense. So make it unlisted, so it's just something that they will exclusively watch it, and then assign something just to make sure they will watch it. Oh, you need to hand in this, but you need to watch that class for next class. So they understand that it's not just, oh, okay, I'll watch it whenever I have time. No, it's an assignment. It's something serious. And you're going to use the time the student had or would have with you. You're going to use that time to make that video. So it's not going to be a 1 hour long video, a 15-minute long video. My videos usually are 30-minute long because I take the extra 30 minutes to upload it to YouTube, edit if I need to edit anything, to send a link, whatever. So it's usually 30 to 35-minute long. And then you send them the link, and I have no problems with that. One student of mine really hated the videos. He said, no, because I don't like that video. And they said, okay, I'm sorry, but I tried. This is the best way I can do it. He canceled just one class. And he's been with me, I don't know, for like a year. He canceled that one class after. So it educates your student into what they shouldn't do. If they're not going to give you a nice notice on when they're going to be canceling, then they're going to get a video. That's the best you can do for them. You're not going to waste your time, right?
Yeah. But it seems like then you have the expectation of you being compensated for that particular time. You can still anticipate that that money will be coming in.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, the last thing we'd like to do is we've talked about a lot of things.
Yeah.
We've talked about teaching background, determining your clientele, marketing, creating and adopting and customizing lessons, selecting tools. And again, some of these things we'll be putting in the show notes. The last thing is arranging payments. How do you collect your money?
Yeah. Well, there's many ways you can do this. I have a lot of students abroad, not only in Brazil, students from all continents, really. So each one of them pays me in a different way. And I really need to be flexible about that. Usually I just send in my bank account information, and they will pay me on this certain date. But the most important thing for however you choose to get paid is when you get paid. Make sure you get paid beforehand. I don't know where you are in the world. Each place works differently. But here in Brazil, we work with monthly payments. But imagine that you work with weekly payments or whatever. Just make sure you get paid beforehand. Because, imagine it's online. Student can just disappear or whatever. I've never faced this kind of situation, but it may happen. And then you're just going to have put in your efforts and everything, and then you're not going to get paid for that. It's a terrible feeling. So just talk to the students as well. You will have to pay previously, and I really have no problems with that, honestly.
Great.
So it's the best way.
And do you use any particular platforms to collect, payments?
Yeah. Internationally, TransferWise is what I use the most. It's
TransferWise. We'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah, TransferWise. I don't pay any kind of fee or anything. The student just needs a lot of your personal information. So if you're not into giving your address, your social security number and these things, if you're not into going that deep into information, because TransferWise does ask for that, you can get paid through PayPal. PayPal, and you can even take credit cards on PayPal. The problem is that they have, I think it's a 6% fee, so it's crazy expensive. I don't like it too much, but
So those are kind of, so TransferWise, perhaps PayPal are options as well. Well, let's look at before we end today, let's look at a couple of other comments that might have come in. Oh, why does she speak so well, so good? Alvin asks, why is your English so good?
Oh,
What
thank
is
you.
the secret?
Well, I was just took by surprise here. Thank you so much. That's so kind of you. Well, I don't know. I just study so much. I just try to expose myself to language, and I told you, you guys, I've lived in the U.S., but that's not determining at all because what I've learned much more after I came to Brazil, and I exposed myself to language like not teaching, but daily learning and music videos, anything I can, reading in English, anything I can do. And staying in social media is really a good idea because you can update your vocabulary. There's something, Randall, I posted yesterday a video on my Instagram talking to my students about working from home. Here in Brazil, we have a terrible habit to use words in English that don't have the same meaning as they do in English. We do that.
Cognates.
No, not cognates.
Oh.
We get, like, for example, a word like home office.
Okay.
An expression like home office. And we don't apply it here as the place we work at, but the action. So we say like we're doing home office, or I'm making,
like changing it to a verb or something like that.
Yes, we change it into a verb. And I told my students, look, it works fine in Portuguese, okay, because that's the way you say it, but don't do that in English. It sounds awful. And how do I know that? Because I'm online, right? I'm studying and I'm updating myself. So some things you're just going to have to keep on updating. The English language is something alive and really alive. The whole world is using it all the time. So it's always changing, adapting. So you need to keep up with that.
So Alvin, I think maybe Elaine will have a slot for you in case you'd like to work on or improve your English or whatever. Rita says, one-to-one private tutoring is different from group teaching. Yeah. Group teaching is tougher due to class control. And I know Rita mentioned this, at least asking some of these questions. This is a really important topic, something perhaps that we could do another episode on rather than private teaching, group to group. Yeah. Certainly important. We have another comment. I have a question for Mr. Randall. What type of app are you using for this webinar? I can see that you are able to show a key point on the screen. Very good. This is called StreamYard. And I would take a look at that, and I will put that in the show notes as well. We have another, thank you so much for joining. Elaine, could you do me a favor? My name isn't common even in Brazil. Randall says, I'd say like, how do you say his name?
Well, Jefte.
Jefte?
I think I would say Jefte.
Jefte. Okay, Jefte, you need to help me on that.
But help me too, because I don't know. I would say Jefte.
All right.
That's how I would say it.
I need to be tested on that.
Right, Randall? Well, maybe that's why.
Maybe so. A couple of things. I am facing that I taught the student and she didn't pay. So maybe a situation. Maybe Felipe says maybe he's facing a situation where he gave a lesson or it wasn't paid and so forth. And
that's why I always get paid in advance. And if they don't want to, then I'm sorry. That's the way it works.
Right. Is it good to use books as reference to teach foreign learners? I would say perhaps so.
Yeah.
Jeff Day says, Elaine, perfect.
Yeah, okay.
We need to review that afterwards. You know, because names are so important. And I would rather try a name and make a mistake than avoid the name.
Yeah.
Well, we're finishing up. We've gone, an hour and 15 minutes. And we appreciate it. We still have 40 live viewers, and that's great as well.
Thank you, guys.
So any final comments? Encouragement that we could glean from everything we shared today?
Yeah. One thing that I didn't have really clear, and students taught me this, and we learned this is not just some kind of beautiful phrase or beautiful quote. We really learned from students, and they taught me, you are the most important material you have. Your knowledge. They will like you. They chose you for a reason, not because of your camera, not because of your microphone, not because. They chose you. Of course, if you want to look good, sound good, of course you should, right? As one of our friends here said, teachers shouldn't be like, tech, oh no, I don't understand it, I don't want to use anything. No, we should be able to learn and adapt and evolve as I have been. But hey, the student wants you and you know how to do your thing, right? So you're a teacher already. So you don't need any technology to do that. You're just going to do it online, right? So just be yourself, do your thing, and adjust, adapt, learn, talk to other people. I love talking about this. I've learned so much. I have one teacher who was like, I don't know if he's online now, it's Sandro. He helped me so much. He said, Elaine, you need to go online. And his effort into bringing me to the online world changed my life. I can say that. So listen to other people, ask for help. Teachers love to talk, right? Look at me. So
I think we both do.
Right? So people will want to help you. People are willing to help you. So just go and ask for help and be comfortable, because the student wants to have you as a teacher, right? They chose you for a reason.
Well, we want to thank Elaine Oliveira for joining us today. I hope that you found the broadcast useful. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be putting in the show notes right after the broadcast some of the information about technologies, about Zoom and so forth. And if you are interested in joining, maybe collaboratively as a group, maybe getting together and learning how to use Zoom and other technologies, well, we certainly could do that. So I want to thank Elaine. Thank you very much for joining us today. Feel free to add any comments that you have after the broadcast. We'll try to answer those questions as well. But again, thank you everyone for joining us today. And until the next episode, we're going to say goodbye. So long.
All right. Bye-bye, guys. Thank you so much for being around.
All right. Bye-bye.